Beneath the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where the sun's rays barely kissed the surface, a silent war was raging, one concealed from the eyes of the world. The Axis powers, confident in their surface fleets and sprawling supply chains, remained largely blind to the invisible threat lurking beneath. American submarines prowled these waters, enigmatic hunters beneath the waves, striking with ruthless precision and vanishing into the abyss before retaliation could be mounted. This stealthy menace would come to redefine naval warfare in the Pacific theater during World War II. At the dawn of the conflict, the Axis naval forces held unquestioned dominance over the seas. Their surface fleets, bolstered by battleships and cruisers, projected power and control, while vast convoys plied the ocean routes supplying distant garrisons and home fronts alike. Yet, lurking beneath this veneer of supremacy was a danger scarcely comprehended: the American submarine force. Operating under a veil of secrecy and deception, these underwater predators moved like ghosts, their presence betrayed only by the fleeting wake of torpedo wakes or the sudden, violent explosions that shattered enemy vessels into wreckage. The initial underestimation of this force by Axis commanders was a costly oversight. They had not anticipated the tactical ingenuity and relentless determination behind the American submarine campaign. They could hear the engines of the convoys, but they could not see the shadow beneath, recalled Lieutenant Commander Harold Benson, an early submarine captain. It was as if the ocean itself turned against them. This invisible adversary exploited the very vastness of the Pacific, using the deep waters as a cloak, striking at vulnerable supply lines critical to the Axis war effort. American submarines operated in a realm where stealth was survival. Unlike the thunderous surface engagements that dominated naval battles, conflicts beneath the waves were a game of patience, precision, and calculated risk. The quiet hum of diesel engines, the eerie silence punctuated only by sonar pings, and the tense moments before the release of torpedoes defined these underwater duels. Commanders had to anticipate enemy movements, calculate distances with deadly accuracy, and evade counterattack in an environment where any mistake could be fatal. The strategic importance of these operations quickly became apparent. Axis convoys, once thought secure under the watchful eyes of surface escorts and aircraft patrols, found themselves vulnerable to attacks they never saw coming. The disruption of supply chains was not merely a tactical nuisance, it was a strategic blow that eroded the Axis powers' ability to sustain their far-flung operations. Fuel, ammunition, food, and reinforcements, all lifelines to the embattled forces, were intercepted and destroyed beneath the waves. This clandestine warfare demanded more than just bravery, it required innovation and adaptability. Submarine commanders had to master the art of silent approach, exploiting the depths and currents to mask their presence. "We learned to read the ocean like a book," said Commander James "Jimmy" Caldwell, whose patrols in the South China Sea became legendary. Every shadow, every ripple told a story. If you listened carefully, the sea would whisper the enemy's secrets. The ocean was both ally and adversary, a vast battlefield where sound and silence dictated survival. Yet, these operations were fraught with uncertainty. The technology of the time imposed severe limitations. Sonar systems were primitive compared to modern standards, and torpedoes, though deadly, often malfunctioned or failed to detonate on impact. Submarines had to balance aggression with caution, for a single depth charge from a vigilant escort could spell doom. Many patrols ended in frustration or loss, but the cumulative effect of these unseen strikes gradually shifted the balance of power beneath the waves. The Axis powers' failure to fully grasp the submarine threat allowed American undersea forces to exploit their advantage relentlessly. The psychological impact was profound. Convoy commanders faced sleepless nights, haunted by the knowledge that beneath their ships lurked unseen enemies, ready to strike without warning. We could hear the tension on the radios, the whispered warnings, noted Ensign William Price, a communications officer aboard a submarine tender. The enemy was always present, even when out of sight. That was the terror of underwater warfare. This invisible war also fostered a unique camaraderie among submariners. Cut off from the surface world, isolated in cramped steel hulls submerged for days on end, these men developed a bond forged in shared danger and unyielding resolve. Their missions were solitary yet interconnected, each patrol part of a broader strategic tapestry aimed at strangling the Axis war machine. Their stories, often untold and overshadowed by grander surface battles, are testimonies to the grit and ingenuity that defined undersea combat. As the war progressed, the role of submarines expanded beyond mere disruption. They became instruments of strategic attrition, targeting not only merchant vessels but also warships, supply depots, and communication lines. The silent hunters beneath the waves redefined the parameters of naval engagement, turning the ocean into a chessboard where stealth and surprise were the ultimate checkmates. The Axis powers' inability to counter this threat effectively marked a turning point in the Pacific conflict. The ocean depths held secrets no surface fleet could penetrate, and within those depths, American submarines carved a lethal niche. They were the unseen enemy, the ghostly predators whose presence was felt only in the rippling chaos left behind. Their operations introduced a new dimension to maritime warfare, one where silence was as deadly as gunfire, and invisibility was the ultimate weapon. The tides of war were shifting, and beneath the waves, a silent revolution was underway. In this shadowy arena, the stakes were existential. The vastness of the Pacific was both a shield and a trap. Submarines had to navigate treacherous waters, evade constant patrols, and endure the relentless pressures of the deep. Yet, their silent vigil was a testament to American resolve and innovation. They transformed the ocean from a theater of surface dominance to a battlefield where unseen forces reshaped the course of the war. The stage was set for a prolonged, grueling contest beneath the waves, one that would test the limits of technology, strategy, and human endurance. The American submarine campaign in the Pacific was not just a sideshow in the grand narrative of World War II, it was a decisive front, a secret war waged in the depths, invisible yet devastating. It was here, in the cold, dark waters, that the Axis powers met an adversary they could neither see nor easily defeat. They thought the ocean was theirs, remembered Captain Marcus Elliott, a veteran submariner. But the sea is a silent battlefield, and we were its ghostly warriors. They could hear us coming, but they never saw us until it was too late. The enigmatic nature of these operations, the stealth and cunning involved, forever altered the dynamics of naval warfare. The unseen enemy beneath the waves was a force that could not be ignored, and its impact would echo through the remainder of the Pacific War. The silent war beneath the Pacific surface was waged not only by men but by machines, machines born of relentless innovation and industrial might. The early months of the conflict had revealed glaring deficiencies in submarine technology and tactics, yet the United States responded with an urgency that transformed its undersea fleet into a formidable instrument of destruction. Technological breakthroughs and mass production became twin pillars supporting this underwater offensive, enabling the American submarine force to operate with unprecedented lethality and endurance. Central to this transformation was the development of the Gotto-class submarine, a vessel designed to outmatch its predecessors in every critical dimension. With a hull engineered for greater depth endurance and a propulsion system optimized for stealthy cruising, the Gotto-class could remain submerged longer and strike farther than any submarine before it. These advances were not merely incremental upgrades, they represented a quantum leap in undersea warfare capability. The Gotto was a game-changer, reflected Naval Engineer Commander Thomas Reynolds. It combined endurance with firepower, giving commanders the confidence to push deeper into enemy waters. The Gotto class was soon joined by the Balao class, which incorporated even stronger hull steel and improved internal systems, enabling deeper dives and enhanced survivability against depth charges. These vessels were the product of American industrial muscle, mass-produced with an efficiency that outpaced any Axis naval construction. Shipyards along the West Coast churned out these submarines with an assembly line precision, a testament to wartime ingenuity and resource mobilization. The sheer number of submarines deployed strained Axis defenses to their breaking point. Yet, steel and hull designs were only part of the equation. The integration of cutting-edge sonar and radar systems revolutionized situational awareness for submarine crews. Early sonar technology, though rudimentary, allowed submarines to detect surface ships at a distance, while radar provided critical surface detection during nighttime or low-visibility conditions. These tools shifted the balance, enabling American submariners to stalk their prey with greater confidence and to evade enemy escorts more effectively. "Sonar was our eyes in the dark," said Lieutenant Junior Grade Ray Mitchell. It turned the ocean into a map of sound, revealing the enemy's movements before they knew we were there. Of particular significance was the advancement of torpedo technology. The Mark 14 torpedo, although initially plagued with reliability issues, ultimately became a devastating weapon once its flaws were addressed. Equipped with magnetic and contact exploders, it could strike enemy vessels below the waterline, causing catastrophic damage. The development of acoustic torpedoes further enhanced offensive capabilities. These homing weapons sought out propeller noise, increasing hit probabilities against agile targets. The combination of improved torpedoes and enhanced targeting systems gave American submarines a lethal edge, allowing them to inflict crippling blows on Axis naval and merchant vessels alike. Production, however, was the linchpin of this technological revolution. The United States industrial infrastructure, unscathed by the ravages of war on its own soil, surged forward with remarkable speed. Shipyards operated around the clock, employing thousands of workers who understood that every submarine launched was a step closer to victory. The Gato and Balao classes were not isolated marvels but part of a vast underwater armada that would come to dominate the Pacific. The scale of production overwhelmed Axis shipyards, which struggled to replace lost vessels amid resource shortages and relentless Allied bombing campaigns. This industrial prowess was matched by a commitment to continuous improvement. Feedback from submarine patrols was rapidly integrated into design modifications. Crews reported on mechanical failures, tactical challenges, and environmental hazards, prompting engineers to refine everything from engine performance to crew accommodations. This iterative process ensured that each new vessel incorporated lessons learned, making the fleet more reliable and effective with every deployment. "We weren't just building submarines, we were building experience into steel," noted naval architect Margaret Sinclair, one of the few women contributing to wartime ship design. The interplay of technology and production created a force capable of sustained offensive operations across the vast reaches of the Pacific. Submarines could now patrol distant waters, lying in wait along critical shipping lanes for days or weeks. Their extended range and improved habitability allowed crews to endure the grueling conditions of prolonged missions, maintaining vigilance in hostile environments. The result was a relentless pressure on Axis maritime logistics, an unseen blockade that steadily strangled supply lines and isolated enemy garrisons. These advancements extended beyond hardware to include improvements in crew training and operational doctrine. Submarine personnel underwent rigorous preparation in navigation, stealth tactics, and weapons handling, ensuring they could exploit the full potential of their vessels. Tactical manuals evolved to incorporate new technologies, emphasizing coordinated attacks and wolfpack strategies that multiplied their effectiveness. "We trained hard to become shadows in the sea," said Ensign Robert Hayes, who served on a Balao-class boat. "Our goal was to be there and gone before the enemy even knew we existed." The integration of intelligence further amplified the impact of these technological strides. Signals interception and code-breaking efforts provided submarine commanders with timely information about convoy movements and enemy dispositions. Armed with this knowledge, submarines could position themselves strategically, maximizing the odds of successful engagements. This fusion of technology, production capacity, and intelligence created a multidimensional threat that Axis naval forces found increasingly difficult to counter. However, technological superiority was not without its challenges. Early in the war, the Mark 14 torpedoes' faulty exploders caused frustration and skepticism among submarine crews. Many commanders reported torpedoes passing harmlessly beneath targets or premature detonations that wasted precious ammunition. It took months of rigorous testing and field reports before the Navy accepted these failures and implemented corrective measures. This delay cost valuable time and lives, yet it underscored the unforgiving nature of underwater warfare and the necessity of relentless innovation. Despite such setbacks, the momentum of technological progress never abated. Improvements in propulsion systems enhanced submerged speed and noise reduction, making submarines harder to detect. Advances in periscope optics and fire control systems improved targeting accuracy, turning fleeting opportunities into confirmed kills. Even crew comfort was addressed, with better ventilation and refrigeration systems mitigating the claustrophobic conditions inherent to submarine life. These enhancements collectively transformed American submarines into formidable platforms of war. The strategic implications of these technological and production advances were profound. American submarines were no longer isolated hunters, they became a coordinated strike force capable of sustained pressure over a wide area. Their ability to remain submerged longer, travel farther, and deliver more devastating attacks shifted the calculus of naval engagements. Axis convoys that once traversed the Pacific with relative impunity found themselves vulnerable to sudden, lethal assaults that eroded their strength and morale. In this crucible of innovation, the United States forged an underwater force that would dominate the Pacific theater. The marriage of technological breakthroughs and mass production created a fleet that combined stealth, endurance, and firepower, a force that could infiltrate enemy defenses and deliver crippling blows with impunity. The submarine had evolved from a tactical novelty into a strategic instrument of war, its impact resonating far beyond the silent depths where it prowled. As the American submarine fleet grew in number and capability, the Axis powers faced an enemy they could neither easily detect nor effectively counter. The technological gulf widened, and with it, the balance of power beneath the waves shifted irrevocably. This transformation was not merely a product of machines, but of the men and women who designed, built, and operated them, individuals driven by a singular purpose, to master the ocean's depths and turn its silence into a weapon of war. "They gave us the tools, and we made them sing," said Commander Reynolds, reflecting on the symbiosis of technology and human skill. Each new submarine was a promise that we would find the enemy, strike hard, and vanish before they could respond. The relentless advance of submarine technology and production was a testament to American ingenuity and industrial might, setting the stage for the decisive undersea battles that would follow. The silent corridors of the Pacific were soon filled with the echoes of a new kind of warfare, one defined not by battleship broadsides or carrier strikes, but by the deadly precision of American submarines stalking Axis convoys beneath the waves. The tactical landscape had shifted, and submarine commanders seized the opportunity to rewrite the rules of engagement. Their operations evolved into a complex dance of stealth, coordination, and ruthless efficiency, transforming undersea warfare from an isolated nuisance into a strategic juggernaut. The key to this transformation lay in the adoption of innovative tactical approaches. Early American submarine operations had been largely solitary affairs, with individual boats prowling independently and seeking targets on their own. But as experience accrued, commanders recognized the advantages of coordinated attacks. Inspired by German Wolfpack tactics in the Atlantic, American submarines began to operate in groups, combining their firepower and intelligence to overwhelm convoy defenses. These Wolfpack strategies multiplied the threat, catching Axis escorts off guard and maximizing damage inflicted in a single strike. "Coordination was everything," recalled Captain Henry Lawson, a veteran of multiple Wolfpack patrols. "Alone, you're vulnerable. Together, you become a shadow that can engulf an entire convoy." These packs would shadow enemy convoys for hours, relaying information and positioning themselves for simultaneous torpedo salvos. The result was devastating. Convoys once thought secure were shattered in moments, their ships sinking beneath a hail of unseen torpedoes. The Wolfpack tactics turned the quiet hunter into a lethal pack predator, striking swiftly and vanishing before counters could be mounted. Integral to these tactics was the exploitation of intelligence gathered from code-breaking efforts. Allied cryptanalysts, working tirelessly to break Japanese naval codes, provided submarine commanders with vital information about convoy routes, composition, and timing. This intelligence allowed submarines to lie in wait along critical shipping lanes, ambushing Axis convoys before they could reach their destinations. The blend of human ingenuity and technological prowess created a synergy that amplified the effectiveness of submarine operations. One particularly notable theater of operations was the South China Sea, a vital artery for Japanese logistics. Submarines prowled these waters relentlessly, disrupting the flow of supplies to isolated garrisons and naval bases. The dense network of shipping lanes and choke points became a deadly trap for Axis convoys. In one infamous patrol, Commander James Caldwell's submarine intercepted a convoy laden with fuel and munitions, firing a salvo of Mark 14 torpedoes that sent multiple ships to the ocean floor in quick succession. "We could hear the explosions echoing through the hull," Caldwell later recounted. "It was the sound of the enemy's lifeblood draining away." Such engagements were marked by moments of intense suspense and split-second decision-making. Submarine commanders had to balance aggression with caution, calculating the risks of attack against the possibility of detection and counterattack. Nighttime became the preferred domain for many operations, where darkness concealed movements and reduced the effectiveness of enemy escorts' sonar and radar. "Night was our ally," said Lieutenant Commander Harold Benson. "Under its cover, we could close the distance undetected and unleash hell before dawn." The tactical evolution also saw improvements in attack maneuvers and evasion techniques. Submarines employed complex approaches, such as firing from multiple angles or coordinating salvos to saturate convoy defenses. After launching torpedoes, immediate evasive maneuvers were critical. Submarines would dive deep, adjust course, and use thermal layers in the ocean to confuse enemy sonar. This cat-and-mouse game demanded exceptional skill and nerves of steel, as depth charges exploded nearby, threatening to crush the fragile steel hulls. The impact of these tactics on Axis naval capabilities was profound. The relentless submarine offensive eroded the strength and morale of convoy escorts, forcing changes in deployment patterns and tactics that often proved inadequate. Supply lines, once the arteries of Axis power in the Pacific, became perilous gauntlets. The cumulative effect was a gradual strangulation of Japanese logistics, undermining their ability to sustain operations across vast distances. Not all engagements went according to plan, however. The fog of war and technological limitations sometimes led to missed opportunities or costly errors. Torpedo malfunctions, miscalculations in range, and unexpected countermeasures by escorts could turn an attack into a desperate struggle for survival. Yet, even in these moments, the adaptive tactics and resilience of submarine crews ensured that losses were minimized and lessons learned. "Every patrol was a school of hard knocks," said Ensign Robert Hayes. "We learned fast or we didn't come back." The human element remained central to the success of these operations. Commanders and crews developed an almost intuitive understanding of their adversaries and the ocean environment. Their ability to interpret sonar echoes, anticipate convoy movements, and execute complex attack plans under pressure distinguished the American submarine force. The bond among crew members, faced with confined quarters and constant danger, fostered a level of teamwork and determination that technology alone could not provide. These tactical shifts were not confined to isolated skirmishes but formed part of a sustained campaign that shaped the Pacific War's trajectory. Submarine patrols extended into previously secure waters, targeting not only merchant shipping but also warships, supply depots, and communication networks. The ability to strike critical nodes in the enemy's logistical web transformed submarines into instruments of strategic attrition, degrading Axis capabilities from the inside out. The Axis powers responded with increased vigilance, deploying more escorts, adopting convoy zigzag patterns, and attempting to reroute shipping lanes. Yet, these measures often proved reactive and insufficient against the dynamic and unpredictable nature of submarine warfare. The Wolfpack assaults and intelligence-driven ambushes kept Axis commanders perpetually off balance, unable to establish safe passage for their vital supplies. The psychological toll was as significant as the material losses, eroding confidence and sapping morale. Amid these operations, moments of dramatic tension unfolded. In one encounter, a submarine captain found himself surrounded by enemy destroyers equipped with depth charges. With torpedoes expended, the decision to surface and engage with deck guns was fraught with peril. "We had to fight like hell or die," he later recalled. The ensuing battle was fierce and chaotic, a stark contrast to the silent ambushes that defined most patrols. Yet, such episodes underscored the unpredictability and raw courage inherent in undersea warfare. The tactical sophistication of American submarines also extended to their coordination with other Allied forces. Submarines provided reconnaissance, relayed intelligence, and occasionally supported amphibious operations by interdicting reinforcements and supplies. Their role was multifaceted, blending offensive strikes with strategic support functions. This integration amplified their effectiveness and underscored the shift from isolated hunter to a key component of a broader naval strategy. Through relentless patrols and innovative tactics, American submarines carved a path of destruction through Axis maritime operations. The Wolfpack assaults, intelligence-guided ambushes, and night attacks combined to create a pervasive threat that could strike anywhere, anytime. The ocean depths became a battlefield of shadows and silence, where every movement was calculated and every salvo carried the weight of strategic consequence. As the war progressed, submarine commanders refined their craft, adapting to evolving enemy defenses and exploiting technological enhancements. Their successes resonated far beyond the immediate sinking of ships. They disrupted the enemy's operational tempo and forced a costly diversion of resources to convoy protection. The tactics of underwater warfare reshaped naval engagements irrevocably, heralding a new era where unseen forces beneath the waves dictated the outcome of battles on the surface. In the vastness of the Pacific, the ghostly submarines had rewritten the rules of maritime conflict. They were no longer mere hunters in the dark, they had become a coordinated, intelligence-driven strike force that struck at the very heart of Axis logistics. Their silent, deadly presence turned the tide of war beneath the waves, undermining enemy strength with every torpedo salvo and calculated maneuver. The unseen enemy had become the most feared adversary in the Pacific. The Axis powers, confronted with the relentless assault of American submarines, found themselves grappling with a threat that defied their traditional naval doctrines. Their initial confidence in convoy security and surface dominance was shattered by an enemy that struck unseen and vanished without trace. In response, they scrambled to develop countermeasures, deploying enhanced escort tactics, anti-submarine warfare, ASW, technologies, and altering shipping routes in a desperate bid to stem the tide of losses. Yet, despite these efforts, the stealth and adaptability of the American submarine force proved a persistent and insurmountable challenge. The first line of Axis defense lay in convoy escort vessels, destroyers, corvettes, and patrol boats tasked with protecting merchant ships from underwater attack. Their mission was clear: detect, deter, and destroy lurking submarines before they could deliver their deadly payloads. To this end, escorts equipped themselves with depth charges, sonar, and rudimentary radar systems designed to locate and engage submerged threats. Tactical formations shifted to tighter, more vigilant groupings, and escort commanders emphasized aggressive patrolling around high-value convoys. Yet, these measures often fell short. Sonar, while a critical tool, had significant limitations. Its range was restricted, and the complex acoustic environment of the Pacific often produced false contacts or masked submarine signatures. Escorts could hear the faint echoes of submarines but struggled to pinpoint their exact locations. Depth charges required precise deployment to be effective, and premature or misplaced attacks wasted precious ammunition and revealed the escort's positions. "We could hear them coming," admitted Lieutenant Mitsuo Tanaka, an escort commander, but catching them was another matter entirely. In addition to escorts, Axis commanders experimented with air patrols equipped with radar and depth charges, hoping to extend the detection envelope beyond the convoy perimeter. Aircraft could cover vast areas quickly, forcing submarines to remain submerged for longer periods, thus limiting their speed and maneuverability. However, this also meant submarines adapted by surfacing under cover of night and exploiting thermal layers in the ocean to evade sonar. The interplay of detection and evasion became a deadly game of cat and mouse, with submarines often holding the advantage. The Axis also attempted to reroute shipping lanes, shifting convoys away from known submarine patrol areas in an effort to avoid ambushes. These changes, however, introduced new vulnerabilities. Longer routes increased transit times and exposed ships to different environmental hazards and uncharted submarine patrol zones. The vast expanse of the Pacific, once considered a shield for Axis shipping, became a labyrinth of danger and uncertainty. "They thought changing the roads would save them," said Ensign William Price. "But the ocean is a hunter's playground, there's no truly safe path." Compounding these tactical challenges were systemic limitations in Axis ASW capabilities. Industrial constraints and resource shortages hindered the production of specialized ASW vessels and technologies. Many escort ships were converted from older vessels ill-suited for prolonged anti-submarine operations. Training was often rushed or incomplete, leaving crews ill-prepared for the subtle and complex demands of detecting and engaging submarines. Communication and coordination among escorts and air units were frequently hampered by technological gaps and doctrinal rigidities. The psychological impact on Axis naval personnel was severe. The knowledge that a silent hunter could strike without warning eroded morale and sowed distrust within convoys. Commanders faced sleepless nights, constantly wary of the dreaded torpedo wake or the telltale explosion signaling a ship lost. "The fear was constant," confessed Captain Hiroshi Nakamura, a veteran escort leader. "You never knew when the ocean would turn against you." This pervasive anxiety affected decision-making, sometimes leading to overly cautious tactics that limited convoy speed and flexibility. Despite increased efforts, the Axis failed to develop an effective counterbalance to the American submarine menace. Their attempts at creating dedicated hunter-killer groups were hampered by shortages of suitable vessels and experienced crews. Technological innovations, such as improved sonar and forward-throwing weapons, arrived too late or in insufficient numbers to reverse the tide. The persistent losses inflicted by submarines overwhelmed repair yards and shipbuilding programs, contributing to a spiraling decline in maritime strength. The limitations of Axis countermeasures were starkly illustrated in several high-profile convoy attacks. In one such engagement, a heavily escorted convoy was decimated by coordinated Wolfpack attacks, despite the presence of multiple destroyers and air cover. Escorts struggled to maintain effective screening formations under the sustained pressure of submarine assaults. The exhaustion of crews and the relentless threat of torpedo strikes eroded defensive cohesion, allowing submarines to infiltrate and strike vital targets. "We fought hard, but the sea belonged to them," reported Lieutenant Tanaka after the battle. Axis naval doctrine, rooted in surface fleet engagements and traditional convoy protection, proved ill-suited to the demands of undersea warfare. The inability to adapt swiftly to the dynamic tactics of American submarines left convoys exposed and vulnerable. Efforts to improve coordination between escorts, aircraft, and shore-based ASW command centers were hampered by communication shortcomings and bureaucratic inertia. The gap between recognizing the threat and effectively countering it remained a persistent weakness. The strategic consequences of these failures extended beyond immediate losses at sea. The disruption of supply lines severely hampered the Axis war effort, limiting the flow of fuel, ammunition, and reinforcements to distant theaters. Isolated garrisons faced shortages that undermined defensive capabilities and morale. The inability to safeguard maritime logistics contributed to a gradual erosion of operational reach, forcing strategic withdrawals and sapping the initiative from Axis commanders. The unseen American submarines had carved deep wounds into the Axis war machine. Moreover, the persistent submarine threat forced the diversion of naval and air resources toward convoy protection and ASW patrols, weakening offensive capabilities elsewhere. Ships and aircraft that might have been deployed in surface engagements or to support ground forces were instead tied down in protective roles. This reallocation strained Axis military assets, compounding their strategic challenges. The underwater war was not merely a tactical nuisance, it was a systemic crisis that reshaped the allocation of resources across the Pacific. The frustration of Axis commanders grew as their efforts to neutralize the submarine menace repeatedly fell short. Reports from the front lines detailed the limitations of existing ASW tactics and the inability to anticipate the enemy's next move. They were always one step ahead, lamented Rear Admiral Kenji Sato. Their submarines hunted in the shadows, and our defenses were always a moment too late. This sense of strategic impotence underscored the profound shift in naval warfare precipitated by the American submarine campaign. Yet, even amidst these setbacks, the Axis powers persisted in their efforts to adapt. They invested in experimental technologies, including improved sonar arrays and new depth charge designs. Specialized training programs for ASW crews were expanded, and joint operations with air forces aimed to enhance detection and response. However, these initiatives often came too late or were insufficiently funded to make a decisive difference. The relentless pressure of American submarines had already set in motion a downward spiral. Ultimately, the Axis powers faced an enemy that exploited every weakness in their maritime defenses. The stealth, endurance, and tactical sophistication of American submarines rendered traditional convoy protection measures inadequate. The vastness of the Pacific, once an advantage, became a hunting ground where the unseen enemy struck with deadly precision under the cover of darkness. The limitations of Axis ASW capabilities and the persistent vulnerability of their supply chains defined a strategic predicament from which they could not escape. In this unforgiving theater, the silent hunters beneath the waves systematically dismantled the logistical lifelines of the Axis war effort. Their success was not solely the product of technological superiority but of tactical ingenuity and relentless pressure. The Axis reaction, though earnest, was ultimately a series of reactive measures that failed to match the evolving threat. The undersea war had become a deadly chess match, and the unseen American submarines maintained an unassailable advantage. The final chapters of the Pacific War bore the unmistakable imprint of American submarine warfare, a silent, relentless campaign that severed the lifelines of the Axis powers and reshaped the course of naval history. Beneath the waves, unseen and unheard, these ghostly vessels had exacted a toll that extended far beyond the tonnage sunk or the ships destroyed. They had dismantled the logistical backbone of an empire, turning the vast ocean into a graveyard for Axis ambitions and a proving ground for undersea warfare's transformative power. The impact of American submarine tactics was profound and multifaceted. By crippling Axis supply chains, submarines undermined the enemy's capacity to sustain distant garrisons, resupply fleets, and mount effective counteroffensives. Fuel shortages grounded aircraft, ammunition deficits stalled operations, and the isolation of key outposts eroded morale and fighting capability. Each torpedo that found its mark rippled through the enemy's strategic calculus, constricting options and hastening defeat. Yet, the legacy of these tactics extended beyond immediate material effects. The silent, unseen nature of submarine warfare introduced a new paradigm in naval conflict, one where stealth, patience, and technological innovation could dictate outcomes as decisively as fleet engagements. The war beneath the waves became a crucible for testing new doctrines, technologies, and operational concepts that would shape naval strategy for decades to come. The mass production of advanced submarines, coupled with refined tactics and intelligence integration, had created an undersea force capable of sustained, coordinated operations across the vast Pacific expanse. These submarines were not mere tools but extensions of American industrial might and strategic ingenuity. Their success demonstrated how technological superiority and innovative tactics could compensate for numerical inferiority in surface fleets, rewriting the rules of maritime dominance. This transformation was not lost on post-war naval planners. The experiences of the Pacific Campaign influenced the development of sonar, torpedo guidance, and submarine design in the Cold War era. The principles of stealth and surprise, honed in the crucible of World War II, became cornerstones of modern undersea warfare doctrine. The silent hunters beneath the waves had proven that control of the seas could no longer be assured by surface power alone. Personal accounts from submariners who served during the war underscore the enduring respect and mystery surrounding these operations. Their stories speak of courage under pressure, ingenuity in the face of adversity, and a profound connection to the ocean's depths. "We were the unseen sword," said Captain Marcus Elliot. "Striking in darkness, vanishing into silence, our work was to be invisible and deadly." Such reflections capture the essence of a force that operated in shadows but left an indelible mark on history. The technological breakthroughs that enabled this campaign, from improved sonar and radar to the Mark 14 and acoustic torpedoes, were not just weapons but symbols of American resolve and industrial capacity. The ability to produce hundreds of advanced submarines, each a marvel of engineering, reflected a nation mobilized for total war. This industrial scale ensured that losses could be replaced, and operational tempo maintained, denying the enemy any respite. Moreover, the integration of intelligence, particularly signals interception and code breaking, provided a decisive edge. Submarines were no longer blind hunters but informed predators, able to anticipate enemy movements and select targets with surgical precision. This fusion of technology and information warfare transformed submarine operations into a strategic campaign rather than a series of isolated incidents. The consequences of this campaign resonate through history. The Axis powers' inability to secure their maritime supply lines hastened their collapse in the Pacific, shortening the war and reducing the cost in lives and resources. The American submarine force, operating in the shadows, became a linchpin of Allied victory, its contributions often overshadowed by more visible battles but no less vital. In the annals of naval warfare, the Pacific submarine campaign stands as a testament to the power of innovation, stealth, and determination. It revealed the ocean not just as a medium for surface fleets but as a domain where unseen forces could wield decisive influence. The tactics and technologies developed during this period laid the foundation for modern undersea combat, highlighting the enduring importance of submarines in naval strategy. As we reflect on this chapter of history, we recognize the men and machines that forged this silent revolution beneath the waves. Their legacy is one of transformation, of how naval warfare was conducted and understood. The ghostly submarines that prowled the Pacific had rewritten the rules of maritime conflict, demonstrating that in war, the unseen can be as formidable as the visible. The story of American submarines in the Pacific is one of ingenuity meeting opportunity, of technology harnessed to strategic purpose, and of courage prevailing in the depths. It is a narrative that honors those who served in the shadows and acknowledges the profound impact they had on the outcome of the greatest conflict the world has known. Their silent vigil beneath the waves changed the face of naval warfare forever.